And here he comes down the stairs to the basement, my new friend, Ted Benna, a gentleman I've wanted to meet for a long time. Ted Benna's here. How are you, Ted?
Hey, Joe. I'm really great. I'm glad to be here with you today.
I am so happy that you could join us. The 401k, most of our audience has no idea how this came about. And the more I read about it, the more in some ways it seems like not a complete accident, but you were in your office. Tell me if I got this right. You're in your office and it's like a Saturday afternoon and you're having some creative thoughts while you're reading the tax code, something a few of us nerds can get into. Tell me, is all that correct? And is that kind of the beginning of the 401k?
Yes and no. Yeah, that was in 1980, fall of 1980. The legislation that made this possible was actually passed in the fall of 1978. I had nothing to do with the legislation. So the effective date was January of 1980. And without getting bogged down the details, this was never expected to be a big deal, Joe. So January of 1980 came and went. We had people running around the country setting up 401k plans. So yeah, the quiet Saturday afternoon you were referring to, actually, I didn't pull this out of the tax code. I mean, I knew it existed. I was aware of it. I was helping a bank redesign their retirement program. And as I was doing that, I was drawn back to this section that I knew about. And, the key pieces I came up with was adding the employer matching contribution. The legislation itself was only a page and a half long. It was not a big deal. Okay. And so there wasn't anything there about a matching contribution from the employer. The other piece I came up with was for employees to be able to take part of their pay from each paycheck and put it pre-tax into this type of plan. So there wasn't anything saying you could do either one of those, but there also wasn't anything saying thou shalt not. So anyhow, I came up with this great idea for the bank and presented it, but their attorneys didn't want them pioneering something that had never been done. So we actually put the first plan in our own little consulting company. So January 1 of 1981 began the first 401k savings plan with employees putting pre-tax money in and getting a match from their employer. That was the beginning.
So you were one of the first, how many people to put money in a 401k?
Well, we had about 40 employees. And actually a guy who worked for me named John Fletcher, who distributed the enrollment forms and got them back in, claims to be the first because he said he was the first one to sign up.
Tried it out on himself. When that was created, then once you had your plan up and moving, how quick was implementation of the 401k? Because I really feel like, it almost was until the mid to late 80s where I felt like there was just widespread. If you didn't have a 401k in your company, something was wrong.
Yeah, it was hard getting it up and rolling, which is hard to believe now because how well known it is. But took a lot of work to do that. And we were trying to get the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times to write an article, and finally the New York Times did. And once that one hit, Joe, it took off. We started to get the phones ringing, and I knew it was going to get big. I knew we just had to get the publicity out there. And the reason, I knew it was going to get big pretty fast was most of the Fortune 500 companies had what were known as thrift or savings plans. And I don't know, you may not know that, but employees put money in after tax into those plans, and they got a match from their employer. Marginal tax rate at that time at top end was around 70%. So I knew, when CEOs and CFOs found out, hey, if we're putting 20, 30,000 after tax into this type of plan, there's a way of doing it pre-tax, the 70% bracket, they were going to want to jump all over it. and that's what happened.
Well, and it's interesting. You and I were talking a little bit before we hit record, and OG and I were bemoaning late last month, Ted, about these numbers, about the fact that you can put more money next year than you could last year into a 401k than IRA holders can. That IRA holders can only, that number stuck at 6,000. And you had a great point about why that exists, why we have this disparity that I hadn't thought about. Do you mind sharing with everybody why these numbers are so different?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. And this applies, to small businesses, over 90% of the 401ks are companies with less than 100 employees. And the issue is if business owners were able to put as much in pre-tax to an IRA without worrying about their employees, a lot of them would do that. They'd never set up a 401k plan.
Are you, and that did not surprise me as a guy that went around the country for a while. Well, went around my area anyway, talking about 401ks. I did a few things around the country and convincing people to use them and how to use them best. That made a ton of sense to me. And of course that's it. By the way, you also have mentioned elsewhere a couple things. And one is there are some people out there that say, why don't we all have pensions like we used to? How come everybody doesn't have pensions like we used to? You call baloney on that, Ted, because apparently these people are envisioning a past that never existed.
That's true. The reality is in the private workforce, never more than 30% of private employees were covered under a pension plan. The idea that, is everybody that walked away and got a pension certainly isn't true. But there's another point I'll make about the good old days. My first job was in the home office of an insurance company in Philadelphia. They had a pension plan. And to be eligible, you had to be 30 if you're a male, 35 if you're female to be eligible.
Wow.
And you had to stay until you're 60 to get a benefit. If you left before age 60, you got Zippo. You got nothing.
Not the beautiful world that people want to remember, Ted.
Absolutely. And the other thing we had happening in that era, when businesses went under, which happened, there was no backstop. A lot of retirees and people who worked for 20, 30 years who were in underfunded plans either lost all or most of their benefits because there wasn't any, back.
Like a national pension guarantee corporation.
Benefit guarantee corporation didn't exist. Exactly.
Wow. Imagine being there 25 years. You've never saved a dime, waiting for the pension, and the pension doesn't come.
Yeah. And what's true today, Joe, people investing in 401ks obviously have investment risk, as they get benefit from the ups and downs. But what individuals don't realize is that even if you're in Social Security or state or a private pension plan, you have investment risk and as much risk also. You just don't know it.
Right.
If they're not properly funded, your benefits are at risk.
Yeah. The question I'm wondering, because you were obviously instrumental at the beginning of this, looking at it now and looking at some of these new plans and fintech getting involved and lowering fees on some of the 401ks, I would imagine that would have to excite a guy like you, seeing some of the recent innovations to make this cheaper and more widely available.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the last 3 years, I've focused on the fact that, for businesses whose owners earn less than $100,000, 401k generally is the wrong answer. So I've focused on, how to make the IRA-based, employer-based plans, more attractive. And, in the book, I cover the fact that now there are 4 different types of 401ks, 3 different types of IRAs available to small employers. So, one of the things I've done is I've covered in detail those types, but also for one shot $200 fee, I'll help small employers figure out which makes the most sense, because doing it right makes a heck of a lot of difference.
Makes a ton of sense. I want to dive into, speaking of the book, I would like to dive into just one piece at the end of the book. You talk about, by the way, in this book, you talk about 401ks, you talk about IRAs, you talk about what to do when you sign up, how to sign up. You tell people what to do when you leave an employer, like all of the different things that could go on with your 401k or an IRA, whether to Roth or not Roth. You dive into the Roth IRA and the difference between that and the traditional IRA and deducting it or not deducting it. But at the end, you have 10 reasons to participate in a 401k. And I know for some of our listeners, we've gotten questions from them about, I don't really love my 401k. It either has fees I don't like, or I don't trust my employer, or just generally, Ted, they don't understand it. So if you don't mind, I'd like to walk through these, and I'll just say the headline from the book. And if you don't mind giving me a few sentences on each of these, I think this will help our listeners a bunch. So the first thing you say is, in your 10 reasons, is you can't afford not to put money in your 401k. What do you mean?
Hey, no one else is going to take care of your retirement. You need to do it yourself. And I've learned over the years from talking to participants, greatest benefit of a 401k is helping turn spenders into savers, by making saving the first priority, the first thing that should happen. And, so you should get in the game. And obviously, the earlier, the better.
Do you like this idea, the recent innovation now that more companies are doing the opt out versus the opt in with the 401k?
Yes, I've absolutely been recommending that for a number of years. And, Congress is, close to passing legislation that says if you have a 401k plan, you must be automatically enrolled and your contributions will automatically increase. And the other thing that they're close to doing is mandating that all employers must offer a payroll deduction retirement program. And I've supported those things because employers have to help their employees do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Second on this list is the stock market can be your friend. I think our longtime stackers love that one.
Well, when you're talking about investing for a 20, 30, 40-year period of time, definitely that's key. And the benefit to starting young is that you're going to accumulate a nest egg. A lot more of it's going to come from investment gains rather than your contributions into it. You wait until your 40s to do that. A lot of more is going to have to come out of your pocket, to get to where you have to be.
I know, I'm sure, Ted, over the years, you've had plenty of people tell you that the stock market can be a risky place. So how do you answer that?
Well, it's definitely a risky place, and I have concern about that for older employees, but younger employees, I told them this in 2008. I said, when the market tanked, I said, hey, your potential to get a 50 to 100% return just got a whole lot better. So dump all the money you can, into your 401k. Take advantage of that, and those that listen, I'm sure they're glad today that they did.
Oh, that paid off so well. By the way, 2008, just a little known fact, that's where all my hair went, Ted, by the way. I'd left it behind. Those were some dark, dark days for a lot of us. Third on your list is you might get contributions from your employer.
Yeah, that's key. Many employers that offer these plans have what is called a matching employer contribution. And so obviously, if you don't contribute what it takes to get the maximum employer contribution, you're giving up money. And a lot of employees you mentioned, may not trust their employers. Well, this costs employers money, when they do that. There's no hidden agenda there. It's a cost to them.
But what if your employer does not have a match? Because I've had people ask me before, say, but well, I don't save into my 401k because my employer doesn't have for a match. What do you say to those people?
Well, the key there is that puts more burden on you, to save because you're not getting help from the employer in terms of a match. So if you can effectively save like you would with 401k outside of the 401k, through private IRA or otherwise, that's okay. Most people can't. Most people can't, mm, you know, each pay period take part of their money and have it go in and just forget about it. So that's still a huge plus with the 401k, even if you don't get a match.
Boy, and I'm right with you there. Even if they can, in my experience, back when I was a financial planner, which is a long time ago, Ted, they don't. Even if they can, they don't. But
Well, they don't, and it's too easy to get their hands on it, even if they do it for a while.
yes. Next up, your 401k money is placed safely in a trust. This kind of gets to the mechanism of how 401k works. Why is that important?
It's very important because the money is somewhere out of your employer's hands. So the idea is, well, I can't trust my employer. Well, the employer is required by law, within 30 days after the money's deducted from your pay to make sure it goes into your account. So if you have concern about trusting your employer to do that, keep checking your account to make sure the money's going in there, that they're not, in effect, breaking the law.
I only saw that happen at my time as a financial planner one time, where the contributions would make it, but they were making it increasingly late. And I'm sure not a surprise to you, Ted, or a surprise to me, but that company got caught and quickly declared bankruptcy, but also had to, one of the very first things they had to do was make those contributions whole, like before they repaid any of the other people. Cause it turned out this company had scammed a lot of people, that they had to pay that back first. We covered the next one, I think, quite a bit. Any plan is better than no plan. But the next one I want to hit on, your account is portable. And I think a lot of people, especially starting out, don't realize that just because I started with this company doesn't mean I have to leave it there.
That's correct. You have the opportunity to take the account, roll it over into another employer's plan if you're going to have one, or into an IRA. And as I explain in the book, I usually recommend getting the money out of your former employer's plan for a number of reasons, and transferring it out.
What are a couple of the good ones that you recommend mostly because of that?
You means in terms of where to roll it over?
Yeah, I'm sorry because I really messed up that. I wasn't clear about that question. But you said there's a number of reasons why you recommend getting it away when you leave an employer. What are a couple of the biggies, the big reasons why you recommend
Probably,
it?
the biggest one would be the fact that you leave it sit there. Companies change. They get sold, et cetera, et cetera. And 10 years or so later, it sometimes can get a little difficult to track down your money.
Yeah. I also, on top of that, another reason that I like a lot is that in an IRA, you can often find lower fee funds. You can find maybe stuff that your new job might not have a great international fund, and you can go find something that has, rounds out your stuff as well. I
Yeah,
like,
well, the other thing around that, when I find people who have money parked back in an old plan, and I ask them how they're investing it, usually they don't have a clue.
right.
They may know where the money is, but they have no idea how it's being invested. And obviously, we both know, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I think of it as a garden that needs to be weeded. The next one I was surprised to see in here, frankly, Ted, it says you may be able to take out a loan.
Yeah, 401k employers don't have to do this, but legally they're allowed to permit employees to borrow from their 401k accounts. That's possible. And I got to tell you, I'm not a big fan of the loans, but it is possible. Probably the only time I recommend doing that is, if you got credit card, with outrageous interest rates, 20-25% or so, it may make sense doing that, but then you better maybe you ought to think about cutting the cards up and throwing them away.
I think that's probably good advice. And I was going to ask you about that very thing, because I've seen you say elsewhere, Ted, that you really would be in favor of a mandate that kind of puts a lockbox on this money and says this has to be used for retirement.
Absolutely. There's a group that's been pushing, and I've worked with them for a number of years now, to do auto rollover, so that it would be like the auto enrollment, that your money's going to be rolled over unless you elect otherwise. But I would like to see Congress actually put a harder lock on it and say, you have to leave the money locked up for retirement. It's unfortunate, Joe, that 30-year-old leaves a job, gets paper that says, well, one of your options now is to take the 5,000 and do whatever you want to with it. It's too tempting to just obviously take it and not keep it invested for retirement.
And what I saw too often, Ted, when I was a planner, was that before they met me, they would make that move. They take that $5,000, and you know what they do with it? They'd use it to buy a car, which means, after the 10% penalty, whatever state tax they're going to have to pay, the tax they have to pay, maybe they're getting 3,000, 3,500, somewhere in there. How much car can you get for $3,500? So now they've got a car and a loan and all these penalties. And then of course, we walk through the opportunity cost and they want to take it back. And as you know, after a certain number of days, you can't take it back. That's just ugly. Something I've been very proud of about our younger stackers is that they already know. I think it's been ingrained in them, this next point that you make, which is Social Security isn't going to be enough. But for the 3 people out there that still might believe that, hey, I've got Social Security, so I probably don't need this. What do you say to those people, Ted?
The highest percentage of pay people get from Social Security is usually around 40-50%. So first question I'd say is, hey, you're going to be, and that's, of course, people are in the lower income area. You're willing to live on 40-50% of your income, but those probably who are listening to you that you're talking about, are earning more than that, and they're going to be getting maybe 25, 30, maybe 35% if of their final income from Social Security when they retire. That's assuming that they get the Social Security benefits that they expect today, and that's questionable.
Right. And luckily, I think that's what people have had drilled into their head, is that I don't even know if that's going to be around, at least the people I'm talking to. Next up is, the younger you start, the more you can save. And man, this is a great one. If you had been there, Ted, with this one when I was 22 or 23, I would have been buying fewer games and socking more money away, because I'm as lazy as the next guy. So I would have loved for my money to work harder for me when I was young.
Yeah, I've given hard numbers in the book of the significance of it, but I'll just kind of give a quick example. If your goal was to have have $1 million, if you start, when you're 25, as much as 70-80% of that might come from investment gains rather than the money that you put in. If you wait until you're 40, it's probably going to be more like 50-50. You're probably going to have maybe half a million of it come out of your pocket and maybe half a million from investment gains. So, it makes just a gigantic difference.
Last on the list, and they say the best time to plant a tree, what was yesterday. But if you can't do that, do it now. And the cool thing is if you started late, you can contribute more as you get older. Explain how that works.
The 401k and IRAs also have what are called catch-up contributions, meaning that when you're in your 50s, if you need to save more, you're allowed to put more money in than what you are when you're younger. So you have an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Boy,
But
catch up for
yeah,
love.
but you have to have pretty big income in reality. I mean, to be able to put that kind of money in when you're in your 50s.
I met a couple recently that weren't able to start until they were 50, and they were lucky enough, Ted, to have a big shovel, but they still had to shovel. And they did, and they were able to make it so that they were retired at 60, which is a phenomenal story.
Sure.
You never see that. The book is 401ks and IRAs for Dummies. Obviously, we went over one little piece of it, the 10 reasons you should put money in a 401k, but it will help you choose between Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs. And a lot of the time, I know that people like us, we inadvertently talk over your head. We use jargon. The term, by the way, Ted, Roth IRA drives me crazy. I kind of wish we were Canadian, where they call it the TFSA, because it's so much more. It's a tax-free savings account. I feel like by using 401k and Roth IRA, we kind of make it tougher.
No doubt about it. I definitely true.
If the one is called the Roth IRA after the congressperson, how come we can't make the 401k like the Benna plan? Why can't we do that? It seems like it'd only be fair, wouldn't it?
Well, I've used something called Benna 401k, but tried that. Give it a shot. So
And the book, by the way, 401k and IRA for Dummies, available everywhere, I assume.
yeah, it's out in Amazon, all the obviously book distributors. Dummy books are widely available.
I will link, by the way, to your website. I will link to the book, also link to the other work that you've done on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Ted Benna, thanks for hanging out in the basement and geeking out over 401ks and IRAs with me. I appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun, Joe. Thank you.